One way you can become more persuasive is to show how you are similar to the other person. A big principle of persuasion and influence is that we help people who we like. We're persuaded by people who we like. And we also know from a bunch of social psychological research that we like people who are similar to us. And so what we find is this chain of events where if we find out that someone is similar to us, we like them better. And if we like them better, we're more persuaded by them and we're more likely to help them if they ask us for help. So how can we implement this? Well, a whole bunch of research has shown that we like people a lot when they like what we like. All right, this sounds convoluted. The point, though, is that when we share opinions, beliefs, and values with another person, that can be all it takes to get us to form a bond with one another. Some classic social psychological research established that this was the case by doing a bunch of studies where people would come in, they would fill out a questionnaire about their likes and their dislikes, and then they would get the questionnaire of the partner that they were about to work with. And they could see that the partner's answers to the questions were very similar to theirs, or were very different to the answers that they gave just a moment ago. Now, in reality, the researchers actually created these other questionnaires so that for some of the people, they would look a lot like the participants' own answers, and in other cases, they would look totally different from the participants' own answers, but the participants didn't know that at the time. When the participants in these studies saw that the partner they were about to work with had mostly the same answers as them, they rated that other person as being more likable. They were more excited to work with that other person, compared to when the participants saw that their partner actually answered most of the questions differently. They were less enthused about working with them in the upcoming activity. So how do we apply this to persuasion and influence? Well, in one study in the 1970s, researchers did basically the same thing that I just described. They got people to think that the other person that they were interacting with either had a lot of the same opinions as them or very different opinions as them. And then in the course of the study, that other person asked for a favor. And the question was, would people say yes? Would people help? Would people be influenced by the other person's request for help? And what they find is that when the participant thought that the other person had a lot of the same opinions, they jumped at the chance to help him. But when they thought that they were really different people, completely different walks of life, they were less influenced. The same can happen in persuasion. When someone's trying to persuade us, and we think that they're very similar to us, we're more open to what they have to say. We're more susceptible to their persuasion. But if we think that we're completely different from the person who's trying to persuade us, we're not going to be as convinced. So what does this mean for you? Well, if you're trying to convince someone and you don't already have a relationship with that person, you can establish a quick bond with the other person by finding some common ground, emphasizing and highlighting the things that make you similar to the other person. Find something you both like or something you both dislike, something that brings you together in a similar sort of way. Once you've established that, they'll be more open to the persuasive message you have to share. Or if you ask them to do something for you, they'll be more likely to do that. But watch out. I remember a time where I was shopping for a new computer online, and the online store had a feature where you could talk using a little chat box to a representative from that store. And so I started talking to this person, and I said, I'm looking for a computer. I'm really interested in graphic design, so I want a computer that'll help me do that. And the guy that was communicating with me said, "Oh, I'm really into graphic design too. I love to use Photoshop and do all these sorts of things." And I was hooked. That was all that it took. Immediately I was like, this guy gets me. He knows what I'm all about. And then when he sent me a quote, I was way more interested in buying that computer just because it was put together by someone who I felt a common bond with. I did feel after the fact, though, that I'd been somewhat betrayed. It became pretty clear that his whole expression of interest in graphic design wasn't meant to form a real friendship with the other person. It was business after all. But I have to admit, the technique works. So there you go. Similarity as a route to persuasion. And remember, the key reason why this works is because it makes you more likable. When you share an opinion with someone, when you share something in common with another person, it can make you more persuasive because it makes you more likable. And it can be something dumb, too. There's one study that showed that if you find out that the other person has the same birthday as you, you'll be more influenced by that person. So it goes even more superficial than shared likes and dislikes. Just having the same birthday can be enough. For more social psychology, subscribe to this YouTube channel, or go to beapeopleexpert.com and find new articles every week about psychological science.